Nats fans have been waiting nearly 2 years for a James Wood debut, and ultimately, it was a success.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, while you're at it, make sure to search Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube. Hit that subscriber button as well. Again, just search Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts. And a little bit later on in today's show, in the third segment, we will have tonight's preview as the Nationals. They did drop game one of this series, but ultimately it'll be okay. DJ Herz against the New York Mets. What will happen? What to expect? James Wood game two. We'll have that preview for you in the third segment of today's show. And of course, as James Wood made his debut yesterday, let's revisit that Juan Soto trade because it's not even up for discussion. The Nationals won that trade. And yes, we've already known this, but still, let's look back into it and really kind of get into why the Nationals won that Juan Soto trade. But let's start off with discussing James Wood's debut yesterday, as of course, the Nationals' top prospect made his debut, and it did not disappoint. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down the sport's top sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So we get started here discussing James Wood's debut. And again, the number 2 prospect in all of baseball, James Wood, is the difference maker that this Nationals team is looking for. When you first heard of James Wood, when the Nationals first got him back in that Juan Soto trade, James Wood was kind of like that high ceiling guy who did have some holes in his game, who really was a top prospect with the Padres, but there were some serious concerns with him coming out of the draft. And again, being 6'7", when you are that big, there are just naturally going to be a lot more stepping stones for you in order to be a complete player. Well, in yesterday's game, I think one thing kind of was pretty damn clear. James Wood is a complete player. You saw it. I'm kind of one of those guys where, again, and if you're an everydayer out there, you probably know this about me. I'm one of those guys who kind of has to see it to believe it. You can talk about it all you want. You can praise this guy all you want. But still, I have to see it for my own eyes. And what I saw in yesterday's game with James Wood, first off, being there in the environment. Let's start off with that. Number one, when you see James Wood arrive and you see him in the field, it doesn't really take much to understand that, oh, that's James Wood. That's the guy that everyone talks about who's going to be the face of this organization, hopefully for the next decade plus. The kid from Rockville, Maryland. The local kid. Someone who's grown up and going to Nationals games. That's the kid that's going to be, and I say kid, he's 21 years old. You understand the point. But that's the kid who's going to be on the banners. He's the kid who's going to be up on Half Street. When you're walking down, you see that big banner up on Nationals Park. James Wood, his 6'7" frame, will be right there. When you see him in person, really when you see him take batting practice, that's kind of when your jaw hits the floor a little bit. I was watching James Wood take BP yesterday. And you know what? I wasn't looking for, let's see if he goes opposite field. I didn't care about that. I wanted to see how hard he could hit the ball and how far could it go. One of his first BP swings in the second round of BP, where it's just kind of swing away and hit the longest ball that you can. The wind was blowing in during that time at the game. James Wood sent one 430 feet with around a 113 mile per hour exit velo off his bat. And again, this is with the wind blowing in. And this is against a BP type of pitcher. Now, yes, is it easier to get that against batting practice? Sure. But to generate that much power in order to see where this ball landed in a part where I've been to hundreds of games at Nationals Park, you probably have as well. It landed right center field, second deck with ease. James Wood is one of those guys where you're going to watch this guy every single day, and you're going to see MLB, their Twitter, their YouTube, post all the damn highlights that they can. Because again, with one thing with James Wood, everyone talks about his 70 grade power, as you should. That's what makes him a top prospect. That's what makes him special, is his power. But the underwhelming part of this, or really not the underwhelming part, but more so the under-talked about part of James Wood's game, is what we saw in yesterday's contest. When he stretched infield air, when it was a little dinker back to the pitcher, he stretched that into not a double, but he got to second base, and I think we all saw his speed on display. He gets there in a hurry. The 6'7" kid who has the strides of a giraffe, he gets there in a hurry. It seems as if it's so effortless for him to get from point A to point B. It's like you made this kid in a lab. And again, in his first at-bat in yesterday's contest, he goes the other way. Nice little line drive or hard hit ground, whatever you want to say. It was a very nice barreled up ball, 106.7 miles per hour off the bat the other way for his first major league at bat, which then catapulted him in his first major league hit. Everybody, James Wood has arrived. The guy that you have been waiting for. The guy that you have been waiting to become and see at Nationals Park. The guy who's going to be maybe the savior of this organization. And hell, maybe an MVP kind of guy someday. He's 21 years old. I don't think he's got the hype of Elly De La Cruz last year, but I think he certainly deserves it. And I think that is an understated part of this entire thing, is that he should be up there with like the Elly De La Cruz hype. And now I'm glad to see that in Major League Baseball yesterday, there were only 3 games, and the Nationals and the Mets were one of them. It was live on MLB Network. The national stage was there. If you're watching in California, if you're watching in Alaska, doesn't matter where you were watching. If you have cable, you watch that game. James Wood was the center of Major League Baseball yesterday. And if you're a Nationals fan, and by the way, Nationals fans showed out yesterday with 26,719 attended. And even then, the buzz in that crowd, it was a lot of Nationals fans. There were some Mets fans, of course. They travel well. New York's got a pretty good population here in D.C. But I would say it was about 24,000 Nationals fans there yesterday. They showed up. They were loud. Everyone was wearing their red James Wood shirt, which, by the way, kudos to the Nationals for doing that. I thought it was a very cool gesture by them to get 10,000 shirts in that ball game yesterday for the first 10,000 fans. But James Wood, he was the highlight of yesterday's show. And that's really what it should have been. You saw it across Major League Baseball. You saw MLB.com post on their Twitter about James Wood. They put the game on the national stage. That is the kind of hype that James Wood will bring to this table. We'll have more on James Wood as the show goes on, but I do want to talk about yesterday's game as well. Obviously, the Nationals, they blew it in extra innings, but whatever. I'm not going to scream, not going to yell, not even going to cry today. The thing that I was really kind of irked about was, and really I want to kind of give kudos to Mackenzie Gore, when Davey Martinez in the 6th inning went out to pull Gore in yesterday's game around 104 pitches, Mackenzie Gore was putting up a little bit of a fight there. You saw that. You know who else put up a little bit of a fight back in the day? Max Scherzer. Now, again, I'm not saying Mackenzie Gore is Max Scherzer. No one has ever said that. I don't think that's a fair comparison to make to one of the better pitchers of all time and the best national, one of the best nationals to grace us here in D.C. But after 5 2/3, about 104 pitches, Gore put up a fight, and I love that. Yesterday, Mackenzie Gore was on his game. You bring in Derek Law, and whatever. We kind of know what to expect. But Mackenzie Gore was 5 2/3 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run, and 5 hits in yesterday's game. If you're a Padres fan right now, man, that's got to sting. Seeing that in yesterday's ball game, see Mackenzie Gore do his thing. having James Wood make his debut. First at bat, hard hit single going the other way. Later on in extra innings, draws a walk. The composure that he showed. And again, this is what we get here in DC. And not even to mention, Dylan Cruz, you're next up. And with this Nationals team and where they are headed, you kind of have to think to yourself, how bright is this future? I can tell you right now, it's a lot brighter than what you may think. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can check us out over on Twitter. Just search Riot Clary 11. That is where you'll find my page. Then check out LO_Nationals for our page over on Twitter as well. And again, while you're at it, make sure to search Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, including over on YouTube. Hit that subscriber button, please. Now, let me tell you guys about this Juan Soto trade, because obviously James Wood, Mackenzie Gore yesterday. Let's revisit it, because we have not done that since for quite some time, to be honest here. So let's get into it. The Nationals, I can tell you this right now, they won that trade. But let me tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at FanDuel. And guys, when we talk about FanDuel, you know what to expect, because I love sports and I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So when you go over to FanDuel, open up the app, like maybe in tonight's game, James Wood is on again. Maybe you want to go James Wood anytime home run, whatever those odds will be. Those will be pretty damn good odds. And I'm telling you this right now, he's going to connect on a ball relatively soon. But also Lane Thomas, he's going up against a left-handed pitcher tonight. We all know he loves to hit lefties. So Lane Thomas, home run anytime. That's maybe my bet tonight. And when you do that, head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Again, head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started. And now we get back into it with revisiting the Juan Soto trade. And again, later on in today's show, we will have a DJ Herz preview for you. Again, that'll be later on in today's show. But the Nats, Padres, back in 2022, made the trade of the century when you traded away Juan Soto, and the Nationals got back in return James Wood, CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel, Yarlin Susana, and then Luke Voigt as well, but he's out of the equation, obviously, for very many reasons. But the Nationals got 5 elite prospects in return. 3 of those guys, James Wood being the third, have now made it up to the majors and are making a major impact. We all know the numbers surrounding James Wood. We talked about that on yesterday's show. I don't need to remind you guys why this guy is a top 3 prospect in all of baseball, no matter which site that you check. But one thing I can tell you right now, this second, it's not even close looking back at this trade. Juan Soto is a Hall of Fame kind of talent. Hall of Famer. He will be a Hall of Famer. Unfortunately, probably won't go in as a Washington National at this point unless he signs a free agency, which is probably not going to happen. But that trade is going to go down in history as one of the best, if not the best trade in baseball history. Plain and simple. When you talk about rebuilding, you really need a core group of guys to kind of come in here and kind of take things and take the reins. The Nationals, they always had that old core, and that's really what got them to win the World Series in 2019. But moving past that, you have to have young talent in order to get those aging kind of core guys in order to win a World Series. It all starts at the bottom floor. The Nationals, they went from the bottom floor to like the 10th floor of a skyrise building. That's kind of what that trade was like. They skipped the foundation and building all these things around a team, and you got a core in one single trade. Let's talk about it. CJ Abrams is having an all-star kind of campaign at this point. one of the best slugging bats in the National League this year, and that's not verbatim, that's just the way that it is, been one of the best shortstops, a top 5 shortstop in baseball this year, statistically at the plate, which again, not many people expected from him. CJ Abrams just eluded this conversation without even considering James Wood or Mackenzie Gore. He has not made this trade worth it, but his step up in this so far this season, batting .284, a .348 OBP, a .512 slug, and an .860 OPS while being only 23 years old. Those are the numbers of a 27-year-old Trey Turner back with the Washington Nationals. Trey Turner never had these numbers when he was 23, 24 years old early on with the Nationals. Trey Turner never did this. So if you were to look at CJ Abrams alone and the stepping stones that he has made to get to this point in order to be in the all-star conversation as a young 23-year-old, CJ Abrams could be, when it's all said and done, the best player from this trade package. But also there are 2 more cases to be had. James Wood and Mackenzie Gore. James Wood, he is a potential 5-tool kind of outfield guy, someone who can run the bases, someone who's got power. He's got a 60-grade hit tool. He has a good arm, plays solid defensively, and again, can run the bases. That is the under-talked about part of this. And I think we saw that in yesterday's game after he legged one out in the second base, as that was the longest 180 feet and probably took him 10 steps to get there. Seriously. That's how kind of crazy and freakish of an athlete that James Wood is. But then looking at Mackenzie Gore and what he has done this year, I think his numbers are actually even kind of lying to us a little bit. He's got a 3.47 ERA through 17 starts this season. Number one, he's been healthy. That is what I wanted to see because injuries have kind of riddled his career so far. He has been healthy. He has been good. He had that one little blister issue, or not a blister issue. He had a hangnail or whatever that was back a few weeks ago. Didn't miss a start. Got pushed back a little bit. That's really all that it's been for Mackenzie Gore so far. But he's got a 3.47 ERA on the season, and even then, his last 2 starts were pretty much disasters. Didn't make it to the 5th. Was not good. Throw those out the window for a second. Overall, though, 107 strikeouts across 90 and 2/3 innings pitched, and a 1.37 whip, which again is a little bit inflated in my mind by number one, walking a little bit too many guys over his last few starts, and number 2, get hit around a little bit, as that was not the case in yesterday's games. He only gave up 5 hits across 5 and 2/3 innings pitched, only 1 walk and 8 strikeouts. Mackenzie Gore, I look at strikeouts with him because, again, this was a top 3 pick back in 2017. This is someone who was a major, big-time prospect within the Padres system and also across Major League Baseball. Was riddled with injuries, but still has overcome a lot, and I think you're now starting to see just kind of the blossoming of a prospect in front of us. 25 years old, has got a ton of stuff to look at and really kind of ooze about. Mackenzie Gore, he is a front-of-the-line starting pitcher, could be an ace of a staff, and even, in my opinion, could be a Cy Young kind of candidate someday. That is how good Mackenzie Gore is. And looking kind of more deeper into it, he's got nasty stuff. I mean, you see Pitching Ninja, Rob Friedman, all the time, talking about his changeup, his curveball, his fastball that can reach up in the upper 90s. From the left-handed side, as a southpaw, Mackenzie Gore is a Cy Young candidate. Not this year, obviously, but moving forward, I would not be surprised whatsoever to see this guy in a Cy Young conversation. Now looking at Robert Hassel III, probably the 4th prospect, I guess you could say, in this. He was considered to be the safest prospect from that trade. He was supposed to be the guy who was supposed to be in the majors and maybe even on opening day back in 2023. But ultimately, he has been bit by the injury bug here at the Nationals. Had a broken hamate bone back in 2023, or back in 2022, rather, after the Nationals first traded him. He had that injury, and he is now injured yet again on the IL, has not played since early on in June. But this season, he was kind of collecting himself yet again, as last year, it was a little bit of a disaster. He struck out way too much, was not hitting for power, was not getting on base, was not hitting for average. Robert Hassel, though, his expectation is to really be right around where he is right now in 2024. He's batting .278 with a .369 OBP, a .369 slug, and a .738 OPS. He's got 46 strikeouts in 49 games, 3 home runs, and 11 stolen bases. This is not going to be some superstar. This is not going to be some all-star, in my opinion. But what Robert Hassel is a consistent, everyday kind of player that you can easily fit in the mold of a very good team. He's solid defensively. He puts the ball in play, high baseball IQ, can run the bases. This is someone who will be a major leaguer, hopefully sometime soon, if he can kind of get over the injuries, continue to improve, and hit for a little bit more power. Because again, it's not that Robert Hassel doesn't have power. Robert Hassel does actually have a little bit of sneaky pop, at least before his broken hand. But looking deeper into it, Robert Hassel just needs to stay a little bit more consistent. But even then, the cherry on top of that trade was Yarlene Susana. Just turned 20 years old a few months ago, throws 102 miles per hour, has even thrown 103 miles per hour, which is, you hear Paul Skeens every single day. I'm not seeing too much about Yarlene Susana doing that. And again, this is not a closer. This is a starting pitcher right now. He started off this year awful in Fredericksburg. But over his last 5 starts, 25 innings pitched, 11 hits, 41 strikeouts, 9 walks, a 0.72 ERA, and a 133 batting average against. He is going to be promoted to High A Wilmington anytime soon, any second. Probably after this next start, if I had to bet. The cherry on top of that deal was Susana. Because again, in my opinion, there's really no in between. Susana will either be a very good starting pitcher, or he's going to be a top 3 closer in all of baseball. Assuming injuries don't riddle him throughout his career, which it hasn't up to this point, so I can't assume that. Susana, that guy is going to be electric. I'm telling you that right now. 6'6", 230 pounds, and he throws gas, and he is nasty. So the Nationals, Padres, AJ Preller, call our phone. We'll make a trade with you anytime that you want, my friend. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, let's preview DJ Herz on the bump tonight. But before we do that, let me tell you guys about our very good friends over at PrizePicks. And guys, you may be asking, what is PrizePicks? Well, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps of PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers, and all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. And again, looking at it tonight, you can turn up to 100 times your money on prize with as little as 4 correct picks, and you can turn $10 into $1,000 just by picking more or less on stat categories. And like tonight, Lane Thomas, I'm going more against a left-handed pitcher on hits. I think he can do that easily. And maybe you want to look at the WNBA bets, you can do that as well. But here's what you have to do. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Again, use code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Now, let me tell you guys about our very good friends over at Tax Network USA. And guys, here on Locked On Nationals, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. Guys, it is year-round. And you know what else is year-round? Collections season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters, and that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on And of course, be sure to mention Locked On Nationals at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Again, mention Locked On Nationals and you'll get $250 discount off their services. Now we preview Sean Manaea against DJ Herz. DJ Herz would be the focal point for today's game, but you are now talking about James Wood up in the majors, making his second start tonight. You are assuming after he batted 6 in last night's game. I would assume that's where he will fill up for moving forward. But David Martinez was on with Grant and Danny yesterday before the game, and he kind of dropped a little interesting anecdote there. Against right-handed pitching, they expect James Wood to be in the number 3 hole. I think that's a little aggressive, if I'm being honest, but I think that kind of goes to show you the faith that they have. Now, they're going up against lefties these next few days, so you won't see that at this point. But when the Cardinals come to town sometime this weekend, James Wood will likely be in that 3 hole unless things just kind of go disastrous for him over these next few games. He's not hitting. He's not making contact. He's striking out. I don't think that's going to be the case because, again, this kid has shown that he is ready for the majors. He does not strike out. He has fixed a lot of the holes in his swing. He's ready for the big leagues. It's plain and simple. But looking at tonight's game, I mentioned this earlier when talking about our friends at FanDuel. Lane Thomas, left-handed pitching. Do it. He's going to hit a home run. And again, the Nationals, I don't know what it is. When you're going up against the Mets at home, at Nationals Park, for whatever reason, you cannot beat the New York Mets. It just won't happen. Even in last night's game, with all the juice surrounding James Wood making his debut. Another beautiful day here at Nationals Park yet again. And the Nationals just kind of, you know what, down their leg in a pretty crappy situation. But now going up against Sean Manaea tonight, the Nationals should be able to take advantage of this. You should be able to go out there with DJ Herz on the mound, who has had brilliant moments so far this season. It's a 23-year-old starting pitcher, left-handed pitcher, nasty. Has not gone against the Mets so far. I would like to see DJ Herz kind of go out there and hopefully kind of shove it down the New York Mets. Now, again, looking at this matchup, it could be a little bit difficult as the Nationals do struggle against lefties at times, but with James Wood now, maybe things change. The way that he has hit against lefties, maybe James Wood goes yard tonight and joins Lane Thomas. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Enjoy the game. James Wood, second game tonight.